I avoided eye contact at all costs. Throughout the day, my dad would call for me and I would ignore. All I wanted was to go back to school. The visitation of that tall, model-like lady didn't even stop. One thing is, I always enjoyed it because no physical lady could give me that satisfaction. Each time she came into my room, sometimes it would feel as though I was dreaming, while sometimes it would look as though it was a trance. She would always come in completely nude. Some sort of unrealistic joy would just overwhelm me, and I would be so happy and consumed in that feeling of lust. When I released the white expected fluid, she would rub it all over her body and give me a weird smile. That was when I noticed that her teeth wasn't the usual 32 we humans possess. Then I would snap back to reality and carry on with whatever I was doing before that ordeal. I went back to school. That month, my dad would call me. Then I was still using a Nokia touch. My father would call me and I would not pick. Along the line, I was in the dream. One night, as usual. But this time around, my dad walked up to me in his younger version, handed me a wooden box, and told me whatever content I find in that wooden box should be held, and everything down to the box itself should be protected at all costs, and I should keep secret all my encounters and never be weak to the power of love. I got up and I still felt his presence in my room. At this point in my life, I had no roomie, and people were scared to share a room with me. They called me the weirdo, while some saw me as possessed. I want to share with you one popular tactics I would use to frustrate people, especially when it comes to the exam period. Whenever they call for study group whatsoever, I would go with them. Even some that would still be outside the hall before their time would be called, then every student would come in or march in. I would stay close to them, and as they would be rehearsing whatever they learned out from their mouths, everything would come into mind. Even the knowledge I already had would be updated, and immediately those people would enter the hall, they would go blank. So yes, it is advisable that once you come in to the exam, stop rehearsing out whatever you've learned. Sometimes I would even ask maybe the head in the study group whatever question, and immediately she or he would open their mouth and release the answer to me. When they enter into the exam hall, they would go totally blank, that even I caught one crying one day. I had to close my eyes and act as though I didn't see her. I would go under the umbrella of telling Expo would be against my belief, whereas I was the one responsible for the blank paper they had. Do not let anyone share your extra pen or even your main pen, meaning that once you go into the exam hall, someone might raise up their hand and tell you that their pen had stopped writing. You, the good Samaritan, would give them your second pen or your spare pen. And the moment you give that spare pen or you give it to the invigilator to pass it to that person in need, you would start experiencing slow information download in the exam. You would find it hard to even understand the question that was being stated in that exam. Something you would have found easy to understand would now start feeling as though your brain would be occupied with fog. The next thing that follows suit: sleepy eyes. While some ladies will start to feel as though a bell would be attached down to their clitoris and their body will start to run temperature. By the time you would want to get yourself in order, the invigilator will now shout, 10 minutes remaining. Then the panic begins. Then the person that collected that pen, if the person shared the same kingdom or practices with me, would be done with every knowledge you studied before entering there, would now be transferred to their own book. They would hear everything read out in their ears. So I would hear in that person's voice. Now, when I mean that person, I mean the owner of the pen that must have studied hard.